Our next panel is all about getting people back connected to the great outdoors, and we have two very important messages being brought to us by Martin McDonald and Jim Terry. But I'm especially glad to have the moderator of this panel because she's a dynamo. Many of you know Ruth Coleman. Ruth has been the director of California State Parks since 2003. She served through 3 governors, and we want her to serve all the way through this governor. She has a new governor that she's working with in Sacramento. The one thing that hasn't changed is that almost every day of Ruth's career, there's been bad news on the newspapers all through California about funding for parks, and she's come up with one creative response and kept the morale of her team at a high level and kept them focused on what they're really in business to do, which is to provide opportunities for Californians to experience the magnificent and the diversity of that state. She has a long background. It's all written up in here. She's been a Peace Corps volunteer. She's been somebody working on electric car projects in California. But most importantly, she's a great friend and champion of looking expansively at how California state parks, other park and recreation sites can serve what Dr. Crompton talked about, being relevant to America in the 21st century, and she's leading the effort. She was a key participant in the Healthy Parks, Healthy People conference in Australia, took back a lot of information, and you know that we're going to be using Ruth's knowledge and vision in the days ahead. So Ruth, Jim, and Martin, it's yours.
Thank you. Thanks. It's really hard to fill in after that very nice introduction. I'll start here as our members are coming up and sort of set the stage. Since I'm coming from California, I thought I really ought to reinforce all stereotypes and talk to you about surfing. For the metaphor I want to use to kind of kick this off. Right now, as we speak, there's a competition going on off one of our state parks near Half Moon Bay. It's called the Mavericks. And the Mavericks is a place where, as the name of the competition is because for some reason the waves get really, really huge around this time of year. And so all the crazies from around the world come and compete. And yesterday they had an injury because the waves were kind of low, but then a 25-footer caught people by mistake. But sometimes the waves can be as much as 50, 60 feet high, and so it's really kind of an amazing place where I think a lot of people go to achieve Darwin Awards. But I'm using the idea of a maverick wave to sort of describe and set the stage for today's conversation. I think we're kind of facing a number of really big waves coming at us, one after the other. And so I just want to describe sort of 3 of them as a way to kick off today. The first one I'm calling the economic wave, but that isn't a really robust enough term. But it's the wave I'm thinking of is not just the economy we're facing, but really more sort of the trends that all of us in the outdoor industry are looking at as a result of a lot of economic and demographic changes that have been happening. And so while as an industry, we actually contributed an enormous amount to the local economies, we in California at my department recently funded a study for a consulting firm from Boulder, Colorado. And we found that in California, the outdoor recreation industry accounts for $40 billion, about 313,000 jobs. And so that ranks in California at 45th. So we're right up there with the aerospace industry in terms of its significance, or insurance brokers. And in terms of job creation, we're at 30th. So we're right up with trucking industry and the legal industry. So we're creating as many jobs as the lawyers. So I think the outdoor industry is showing a tremendous amount of robustness even in this economy. But there's a very frightening sort of underlying trend that we're all looking at, and you heard a little bit of it described in the most recent conversation with Frank, and that is the percentage of people doing what we offer is what's dropping. And in my department, we have about a 15% drop over the last 30 years. In other words, 15% less of the average population are using what we offer. And so state parks, our camping continues to be absolutely off the charts in sales, but we're at capacity. We don't build very many more campgrounds. We'll open the first one in 25 years on the coast this summer. And it will fill up, I'm sure, in 2 to 3 minutes on the internet, 7 months out for the entire month. I mean, that's not unusual for us. But as a percentage of Californians, it's less. And so that has implications for a couple other ways I want to talk about. One is the health wave. As fewer and fewer people are doing this outdoor recreation, they're getting fatter and fatter. And then you superimpose on that the whole issue of the kind of diet that people are eating, then that level of inactivity, this sort of a learned sedentariness. And so it's translating into these statistics that people like Michael Suk in the audience will be able to speak more to. But we're looking at, in a lot of communities of color and low-income areas, 30% obesity rate is kind of standard, and across the population about 25%. 1 in 4 are morbidly obese. And that translates into huge costs, but it also means that those people are going to be less and less sort of interested or able to come and do what it is that we offer. So we have this sort of health issue that we have to address. And then that last wave I want to talk about, which kind of is a function of the first wave, with fewer and fewer people doing it, I'm calling the political wave, which is this phenomenon we've seen where the public continues to very highly value what we offer. And when you poll them on what matters to you, what is it that parks should be doing, what comes up very high is this whole notion of preservation of legacy, preservation of open space. There's a very strong, deep-seated emotional connection to it. Now, in the past, that translated into high levels of public support for the financial aspect of what we do. And that's really what's changing. The level of interest continues to be high, but it's not translating into a level of willingness to pay for it. And so, whereas in California probably around 1980, about 1% of the state budget went to state parks. Now it's less than 1/10 of 1%, and it's continuing to fall. In a recent poll, they were asking people, if you were going to cut, what would you cut? The only two things that went above the 50% mark were cutting parks and cutting prisons. So we're in a really bad space in terms of the public's willingness to pay. And so what that translates into, and this is happening both at the state, the local, regional level, and it's a little frightening for those in the private sector as well, is that your public lands accessibility is on the wane. And one of the challenges I'm working on right now is we're being cut again, and the drills that we're working on are which parks are we going to actually potentially lose this year, and in a couple of weeks we'll be making an announcement of which parks we're really going to have to close, because this governor that we have now is very serious about eliminating our deficit, and the cut we have we know will be permanent, and we have to come up with, in essence, a new normal. So these are these really big waves, and right now sometimes it's easy to kind of look at them and think of yourself as a surfer who's just about ready to get thrown right into that washing machine. But the nice thing about that wave metaphor is there's another way to look at it, which is catch that wave and ride it. And so what we're going to hear today are from two different individuals who are going to describe programs they're doing that illustrate a way to ride this wave as opposed to letting it just turn you into a grinding washing machine experience. And so the first person we're going to have speak for us is Martin McDonald. He's with Bass Pro. He's the Director of Conservation for Bass Pro and has been there for 16 years. He has a very extensive experience in working in conservation, and he's leading his organization to deal with conservation. I think you have the bio in front of you, but I wanted to highlight that he's received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and so he's showing tremendous leadership across the country and has been well recognized for it. Our second speaker will be Jim Terry, who's with the Boy Scouts. He's the Assistant Chief Scout Executive and Chief Financial Officer, providing leadership and responsible for all the outdoor adventure group. That includes the national events, Jamboree, and the others. And he received the Distinguished Award from the Order of the Arrow. Now, as the daughter of an Eagle Scout and the wife of an Eagle Scout, I know that is a really, really big deal. So I'm really honored to be on the same panel with these two individuals, and I'm looking forward to hearing some of the really positive, exciting, innovative programs they're doing. They're going to help us ride this wave instead of getting crashed by it. Thank you.